Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Queerness Diaries. I'm your host, Connor Edwards, and I'm super excited today because I am joined by Christian Orellana. And I want to make sure I get your name fully correct first because I always know with the Spanish pronunciation. Is it like Orellana?
Orellana, yes, yes.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I'm so happy to have you here today on the podcast and get to delve into all the different chapters of your story. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Connor, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's so great to have you, and it's amazing that this podcast I started back in April and it's already rolling into another year. I'm like, where's this year gone, you know?
This is amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm really excited today to delve into your story and hear all the wonderful chapters and exciting journeys that you've been on throughout your life. And just so we can get an introduction to you before we go into your personal story, so everyone can know, tell us just briefly a bit about yourself and what you do for all the people out there tuning in.
Absolutely. So, yes, I am Christian. I run a little small business. I sell t-shirts online for the LGBTQ community. Um, Mostly gay men are my main customers.
Yeah.
It's called Hunky Tops. You can find it at hunkytops.com. And yeah, other than that, I do have a 9 to 5. I work in the video game industry. I do data analysis for video games.
Ah, nice. Well, I'm excited to get more into that later on as well. And I think, queer business owners, we have to champion and celebrate. So I think it's
I
fantastic when
appreciate
you've
that.
got an idea to just bring it to life and get it out there into the world. But we'll go more into that later. I definitely want to go into your personal story first of all. So if you imagine going right the way to chapter one, the beginning of your story. So, how does your queerness diary begin?
Oh my God. Many, many years ago, I was born in Chile. I'm originally from Chile. Um, I am one of three, so
Yeah.
children. So I'm the middle child. Um,
Mm.
my older sister is 3 years older than me. So growing up, we were very close.
Yeah.
We still are. Um, but basically, yeah, we lived in this old house uh in Santiago in the heart of the country where half of the population lives.
Yeah.
And this is a big city. We lived in an old house. We weren't allowed to go outside of the house, but the house had a huge patio. So this
Yeah.
patio was like our realm where we used to live, right? It has walls all around it. You couldn't see outside. My
Yeah.
dad planted grass. There was this beautiful avocado tree. Um, we had like uh oh, what do you call, like a grapevine.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
so my sister and I used to play out there a lot, and so I would say my childhood was very I would say innocent. I didn't
Yeah.
go out. I didn't meet a lot of people. I was very isolated. Uh,
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of exposure, I guess, to the world as a child until I started school for sure. Um, but things that I remember when I was a very young child, though, is that for Christmas,
Yeah.
uh, my parents gave me a doll. Like,
Yeah.
and I remember asking why I'm getting a doll. And I said, "This is probably for my sister. You probably got it wrong."
Mm. Yeah.
And I remember my mother telling me, "It's because you're always playing with your sister's dolls, so maybe you want to know
Mm.
yourself."
Yeah.
And I remember being upset about that. It's like,
Mm.
why would you give me this? This is dumb. And I
Yeah.
only gave the doll to my sister. Um, but I remember being upset. But years later, looking back to that, I think, well, my mother knew
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
before I did that this was an interest of mine, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I never really thought about it too much after that, other than yes, I remember being very, very upset. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's kind of like my earliest childhood memory. The other thing I do remember is that my dad, my sister had Barbies, and one thing that I
Mm.
liked about the Barbies was the fact that you can make clothes for them. And
Yeah, yeah,
and my grandmother had a sewing machine. This is one of these old-time sewing machines that are not electric, that you had to like, that had like a pedal thing that you had to, operate with your foot, and it has, and
yeah,
my grandmother used to make clothes for my sister Barbies, and I was just fascinated by that idea. The fact
yeah.
that you could have like little clothes and put it on little people, like it was like
Mhm.
the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
Um, I guess from there I developed like an interest in the GI Joes that you could put clothes onto because I guess that's the
yeah.
boy version of the Barbie. But my grandmother didn't make clothes for my GI Joes.
Yeah. It's funny though, isn't it? When we look back to our childhood, like small memories that then as we get older and we build our careers and different parts of our life, something that seems maybe like a minor thing at the time can be something that is part of our journey into what we become and what we want to do in the future. And it's like we always remember those key moments, and it feels like at the time, the day just goes by and life carries on. But then suddenly you find yourself looking back to that moment and you're like, yeah, that was a key moment in my development and where I was putting in sort of the groundwork to where I am today. It's funny, isn't it, when you look back on those
It's crazy.
memories?
Yeah, yeah. I do remember having a professor at the university years later, where I was having some sort of vocational crisis. I don't know what I wanted to do. And I remember she telling me, uh, think back of what you loved to do when you were a child. She said that's the most pure thing that you can
Yeah.
think about, and that's really your passion. And I
Yeah.
remember back then thinking, well, I loved to draw when I was a child. I used to draw a lot,
Yeah.
and I really, really enjoyed it. I would like spend hours just drawing things. And I back then I didn't think I could do anything with that, so I just decided to go into engineering, which
Yeah.
had nothing to do with drawing, but it made it feel like I would have more of a future, I guess. And, yeah, but that's like a later chapter.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's so cool though when you have something that is an idea or something creative as a child, and then you're able to pick it up. It's probably what's brought you, if you think about it as well, to the present, like as you're creating and coming out with Hunky Tops. And it's like when you look back, it's funny to see those moments, from a young age that play into our lives later on.
Absolutely. I always remember um, when I was a teenager, I loved to read The Sandman, and they there's this character Destiny there, right? Where
Mm.
Neil Gaiman described Destiny's garden as a maze, right? That it has like all these paths that go into all different places, right? And you start walking through
Yeah,
this garden and you start making choices. But this says, well, when you look back, you only see
yeah,
one path
yeah,
that
yeah,
brought you to where you are. But when you look forward, you see, infinite paths. And that image always struck with me. And that's exactly what you say. Like now, where I am, if I look back, everything makes sense, and all of these pieces kind of like fell into place.
yeah,
But back in the day, I didn't know. It was hard. I mean, I struggled with my identity for a long time,
yeah,
like many queer people do. I was in Chile, which was a very, I say was because I don't really know what the state is now, but it was a very conservative country, right?
yeah,
Latin
yeah.
America in general tends to be very conservative, at least in terms of like uh, gender roles and
Yeah.
expectations. Uh, and that's where I grew up. Um, yeah, I remember as a teenager, yeah, I was dating girls because that's what I was supposed to do. And I remember uh, thinking about guys, but thinking in my head that try to
Mm.
make an excuse. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I look in, I and for whatever reason, felt, I always looked like older men, older than I
yeah,
was back then. And I used to rationalize and say, well, this is like role models, and this is what I want to be someday, and this
yeah,
is what I'm looking at all these guys on, at the beach or whatever. Uh,
yeah.
Meanwhile, I was trying to date girls, and that never felt right, and it
Mm.
was, yeah, it was always a pain, and I feel so bad because I mean, I don't know, most of these girls probably don't even remember me, but it's like I feel like
Mm.
you're wasting people's time, right? It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel sorry. I mean, I had long relationships with girls
Yeah.
that, you
It
know,
is difficult though, when you're navigating like adolescence and you're finding yourself, and then you see, everyone else in school or college following this route that you've quote unquote thought was the normal way. And it's like you're
right.
dealing with your own feelings and identity, but there's a fear around acting on them. And so I think with a lot of us, we try and suppress, or we're just like, if we just keep pushing it away, maybe try dating girls or whatever it is, then maybe it's something that we can suppress. And then it's like eventually it becomes something that's like, no, I can't keep, putting this part of myself away, because it starts to do a detriment, doesn't it, to our mental health after a certain amount of time. But there is that pressure, when you're in school, you're finding yourself to sort of, it's hard to feel like possibly being the outcast if you act on, your sexuality, gender identity, whatever it is. It's very confronting, especially at that age when hormones are raging anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy though because this is why I think representation is so important. Because I remember not knowing what being gay really meant, what it
Yeah.
was. I just knew it was something bad, something that people really didn't talk about in Chile.
Yeah.
And I remember having a classmate that was a little more feminine, right? And
Yeah.
oh, I guess important part of the story is I went to an all boys Catholic school.
Yeah.
Uh, and he had a bad time during school. I mean, people
Mhm.
bullied him. It was awful.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, always flew under the radar. I always felt like I could be a target of bullying, but I was never really bullied. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's because I was passing, right? Although I don't know. I honestly don't know if I was really passing because I've seen like photos of myself at that age. It's like I was very gay. So
Yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe the other kids were even more gay than I was. So, they were targeted with bullying. I don't know.
Yeah.
But is yeah. So I always think that if I had a role model, if I saw that it was okay, or that there were like successful gay people, or even, today
Yeah.
in media, there's like a lot of stories about gay kids in high school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's like Love Simon and all of those things. And I feel like maybe it would have made a difference when I was a
Yeah.
child.
True.
I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure how things would have played. But yeah, I do remember that the only thing that I knew is that it was a thing that I was worth keeping secret,
Mhm.
and that yeah, if you express any kind of like different uh identity, you'd be bullied at school, and that was something that terrified me. So um, yeah, I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I think, the thing is, all these shows and queer representation that we have nowadays is still very recent, really. We have like Heartstopper, Love Siren, but even, going back to when I was in school, it was just like the beginning of the MySpace era. And even then, there was not much. But you think back to a time before social media, trying to find like a queer figure or some representation in the media, there was very few, and often it was portrayed very negatively. So it was hard to just find those stories and just find, any sort of media or outlet to connect with. And so it's like, it's very confronting when you're trying to, live your authentic life, but you've grown up in an environment where it's just not represented in the media. And it's like, I think yeah, there's so much out there now. There could still be obviously a lot more, but it's so recent. A lot of
It's true.
stuff,
It's
but
true.
like these shows, I'm always admire, like the Love Simon shows, Heartstopper, all these that the kids have now. Because there was, yeah, when I think back to when I was that age in school, I mean, they had shows like Skins and that, but the teenagers were wild in that. That wasn't much gay
That was a different show. I
representation.
remember that one. Yo, I like that. I like that show.
Yeah.
It was we didn't in Chile. We didn't get a lot of well until cable, I guess. There were some like a lot of British TV coming over because Skins is a British show, right? I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure it
yeah,
is. Yes, yes.
yeah.
Um, it was mostly from the States or like local TV. I do remember the Will and Grace when Will and Grace came
Oh
out,
yeah, Will and Grace. Yeah,
but it was the thing that people were talking about, but at the same
yeah.
time, I didn't feel right watching it because I don't want people to know that I was watching Will and Grace.
Yeah, yeah,
But I was like secretly watching and enjoying it. But
yeah,
yeah, that was probably the first time that I really get to see, or at least for me, I got to see like successful
yeah,
gay, right? Like, I mean, Will is a successful lawyer. He's out and proud. I don't know if he's out
yeah,
at work. I don't really remember the details of the show. Uh, so yeah, it was great. I remember that that was to me like the beginning of representation, and I just yearned for that life. I wanted that, right? You know, so I wanted to have
yeah,
those problems as opposed to the problems that I have, which were like, how do you even find a date? How do you know
yeah.
what to even do? I don't know. Yeah, those
Yeah.
were the days.
Yeah, it does get to that point, doesn't it, where it's like, look, I can't hide this about myself any longer. I need to start living in some authenticity because otherwise it does start to tear you apart when you feel like you can't be just yourself. How was it, your experience sort of around coming out, and how did you approach it? Did you come out to, say, a friend or two at first, or was it a relatively easy process for you?
It was not easy. Well, I mean, it wasn't easy for me. I guess the first person that I had to come out to was myself, right? And
Yeah.
it was really hard for me to accept that yes, this is who I was. You know,
Yeah.
I I don't mean to say that I don't believe in bisexual people. I do believe there are bisexual people, but for the longest time, I told myself maybe I'm bisexual.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
this is a thing. But in the end, I was like, no, I'm really gay.
Mhm.
I'm the girls not really doing for me.
Yeah.
Um, but so yeah, it was like kind of hard to accept for me. And I do remember a period in my life where like I didn't even know it back then, but now looking back, I think that was the thing. I was still trying to date a girl, and I had a very close friend that I didn't really realize that I probably had feelings
Yeah.
more than just friendship for him. Um, and then he started dating, and I remember being so hurt when he started dating a girl,
Yeah.
and I just remember feeling so heartbroken. And I was like, why am I feeling this? It's like this, I should be happy for him. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, and I guess at that point I was like, okay, I think I need to analyze these feelings.
Mhm.
But that was, yeah, that was, I was old. I mean, I was in my 20s. And at that point, I was just like, I decided I was gonna try to date guys,
Mhm.
but I wasn't gonna tell anybody until it was like a need to know basis, right? So it's like until
Yeah.
I have like a actual relationship, until like I have a boyfriend that I want to bring home, that's when I'm gonna tell my parents.
Yeah.
But there's no need to tell anybody before that, right? I remember going on dates at the beginning with guys, like the first time I started dating guys. I
Yeah.
remember I was so awkward. I was so worried that somebody would see us. Like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
but we will go to a restaurant. It's like, what if somebody from work sees me here?
Mm.
That guy who I'm gonna say this is my cousin. Right? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
I would make all these scenarios in my head. And because I was so worried and nervous, I didn't have good dates like at all.
Yeah.
It was so bad. Nobody ever saw me, by the way. Like
Yeah.
that's we're talking about a huge city of I don't know many millions of people, so it's like the chances of running into somebody is very
Yeah.
slim. But it was always the constant worry in my head. Um, so yeah, it was very hard at the beginning, and like I said, I didn't want to tell anybody how I was feeling, so I was very lonely for sure. And
Yeah.
I was like uh joining online spaces because they said they felt safer. So I'm talking, this is early 2000s probably.
Yeah.
Uh, so um, yeah, that's how I met my husband,
Oh, nice.
which is funny. Um, yeah, we met on Flickr. I don't know if you remember Flickr.
Oh, yeah. It rings a bell. Yeah. It does sound
Yeah,
familiar.
Flickr was like an early, I guess it got bought by Yahoo later and they destroyed it, but it was like a photo sharing place where you would post pictures, and I had a bunch of like projects, like a picture a day, as things that I would do.
Yeah.
Um, and you will interact with other people around photography. And I remember seeing like my husband was posting pictures there, and yeah, I remember seeing his pictures, and I was like, so
Mm.
I don't know. There was something about the way he saw the world that it really like attracted me, and we started talking, but without any like intention of anything, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but that's when I realized that I don't know, maybe this was a person that
Mm.
I could fall in love with, but also it was also kind of like didn't have a lot of the pressure because we were in separate countries. He was in the
Mm.
States and I was in Chile.
Yeah.
So, it was like it was fun at the beginning, a lot of flirting. But like, I mean, at the very beginning, it wasn't really a lot of flirting, but because I didn't even know if he was gay or not. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but we kept talking, and I visited him in the States. And, we went out on photo tours and it was fantastic. And it was such a great time. And yeah, one thing led to another. And we really didn't want to say that we were dating because, it didn't really make a lot of sense because we were in different countries, right?
Mm.
But about the same time that all of this was happening, I was teaching in
Yeah.
Chile. And in order to get a better job, I needed to get a PhD, basically. So I was looking for PhD options. And I had a very good option to get a PhD in Chile, but also
Yeah.
there was an option to get a PhD in the States.
Ah, okay.
So I was like, which one do I do? What do I do? And I decided to go for the States. And I came to the States. I started getting my PhD, and this is when I said, this is it.
Mm.
I'm leaving my country behind, this country that was very conservative, at least in my opinion. I'm coming to the States, the land of the free, and
Mm.
nobody knows me here.
Yeah.
This is when I can be myself. Like this is it.
Yeah.
So I remember, um, yeah, I remember meeting my advisor, and I still didn't. I mean, I don't know how to come out, like, or how to tell people.
Mm.
So I kind of like decided to be just very open about it, right? And at that point, I decided to. I mean, my husband and I decided to like we really started dating, like officially dating.
Yeah.
Um, So I remember my supervisors, and I guess he knew also that I was probably gay because he saw
Mm.
my husband and I like walking on a trail. I didn't see him, but then the next day he says, "Hey, I saw you yesterday on the trail,"
Ah,
uh,
yeah. Yeah.
and he was like, "Who was that person you were with?" And he flat out me, like, "Is he your partner?" And I was like, "He's my partner." And I remember that was like the
Mm.
first time in
Yeah.
like a professional environment that I was
Yeah, for
telling
sure.
someone, "Yes, this is my partner," and he was like, cool. Next time I see you guys, I'm gonna say hi or something like that. And then, like he was so open about it, like he was not a big deal. And then we kept talking about academics. So it was like I was blown away. It's like this is a way that
Yeah.
you can actually live. It was like, and it's just like this weight taken off your shoulders. Like
Oh, yeah, for sure.
this is who I am, and it's fine, and people are cool with it. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I remember the university had like all these LGBTQ clubs and things. I remember there was like a coming out day celebration, so I participated in that, and it felt really good. But I still felt like I had two sides of my life, right? I had this
Mm. Yeah.
out and proud gay man in the States versus my
Yeah.
family back in Chile, who had no idea what was happening. All my friends that I had left in the country.
Mm.
So I had to kind of like blend those two together.
Yeah.
So although my husband had visited me, before we started dating, he had visited me in Chile a couple of times as well.
Mm.
So my family knew him, but they didn't know of him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, we decided to take a trip to Chile together, and I remember my sister invited us to. Which, by the way, I forgot this part of the story. I'm so sorry. It was kind of important to the whole development thing. My sister came out as gay.
Mm.
Um, when I was still a teenager, and I remember my mother told her
Mm.
not to say that ever again, or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she was kind of like had to take it back. She was like, "Mom, I'm gay." And I was like, "No, you're not." And she was like,
Mm.
"Okay." And then
Yeah. Yeah.
so she basically had to come like twice. So she did a lot of the groundwork for me. But anyway, the time that I visited with my current husband, I don't like to say that. That sounds bad, but with my husband,
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean.
um, my sister invited us over to her apartment for drinks and dinner, and I remember my brother was there too, my younger brother, and then my sister kind of like asked my brother to leave. They're like, hey, don't you have to go home? And he was like, oh, sure, yeah, okay, I'll leave. And after
Yeah.
he left, she flat out asked us, are you guys a couple? Are you guys dating? Um, and I was like, I guess this is the moment. This is when my family finds out, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we're dating. And my sister was mad at me. It's like, why didn't you tell me before? I mean, I've known that she was gay for a long time. Like, why didn't you tell me? And this is something that I also remember from being a child. There was always like this comparisons between us. Like my
Yeah.
parents didn't really mean it, but I always felt like I was like because she was my older sister. Like I was always like not necessarily copying her, but going like after her
Yeah.
path. You know what I mean? So then she comes out
Mm.
as gay. It's like, well, I guess that's taken. I can't do that because she's the gay
Yeah.
one. It's like I told her that, and she said, "Well, you're stupid." And
Yeah.
she was like, "All of these years we could have, been frank with each other, and
Mm.
and I mean, she was right.
Mm. Yeah.
But anyway, so that was done. So then it was time to tell my parents, and I was really, really terrified about that. And I honestly don't even remember how that conversation went. I feel like I blacked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember being with my husband. We were both staying in my childhood bedroom, and it was night. It was late one night, and he was like, "Well, because the whole purpose of this trip was to tell my mom." But this was one of the last nights we were there, and he was like, "We don't have much longer here. Are you gonna tell her?" I was like,
Yeah.
"I don't know. I don't know." And he was like, "Just go tell her." And I
Mm.
will tell her. And it was night. My mom was drinking tea, so I made myself a cup, and yeah, I just remember telling her. I was so nervous. And I honestly don't remember how it went. I don't remember the words. I don't remember what she said back. All I remember is that it was fine. I mean, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the thing that you wanted to know is what every parent wants to know, I guess, if I was, you know, happy and
Mm.
if I felt loved.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm yes to all of those things. Um, and yeah, so she just gave me a big hug, and I don't honestly I don't even remember how I told my dad. I think I told the next day. She probably already have told him, that same
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, my dad is a man of very few words, but he as
Yeah.
something he loved my husband, so he was just happy for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I came back. Oh, so the other thing was my friends. I decided not to tell any of my friends back then
Mm.
because I just didn't feel right.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
didn't think it was the moment. The moment where I finally came out to most of my friends was when my husband and I finally got married.
Mm.
So um, marriage equality in the States was really weird the way it came about. Because there's this federal law that is different from local state law, and basically
Yeah.
federal law prohibited gay marriage, right? There was a law, the Defense of Marriage Act, that said that marriage was defined as between a man and a woman, and that was federal law. So that meant that no states could, I mean, no, states could redefine marriage however they wanted, but however, for
Yeah.
federal law, it wasn't valid. So there were like states like Maine in particular that had marriage equality in their laws, but
Yeah.
those marriages weren't legal federally. Because I was a Chilean citizen and my husband was an American citizen. If we wanted to get married, we had to get married under federal law, and that was
Yeah.
impossible. So um, we couldn't do it for the longest time. So we didn't even think about it because it wasn't even a possibility. I mean, it was marriage wasn't a thing. It was
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
possibility. Like growing up, I never thought about a wedding, right? Because
Mm.
I didn't think I would ever get married.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I remember things changed. Def the Defense of Marriage Act got struck out off the federal law. So all of a sudden, it was left to the states to determine what the way it was.
Yeah.
We were living in North Carolina, which did not accept gay marriage, but Maine did.
Mm.
So we came to Maine. My husband is originally from Maine. His whole family is here.
Yeah.
So we came to Maine. We got married in Maine. But that was the moment when I decided that that was the time that my friends should know. So
Yeah.
I sent an email to my friend saying, "Hey, I'm getting married, and you know, his name is Ed." So it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
very very matter of fact. Like, did you figure it out? I mean,
Mhm.
and yeah, they were. I I heard back from most of them, saying that they were super excited and they were really happy. A couple of them even came to my wedding, and I wasn't expecting that at all. So
Yeah.
that was you know really really heartwarming. There were a few that I never heard back from, that
Mhm.
completely fell off my life, and I was like, oh, I guess those are not really your friends. So it
Yeah.
was sad, but what you gonna do? You gotta move on. Uh, but yeah, we got married. We It was a weird time because we were married in May and under federal law, but
Mhm.
we were living in North Carolina, which did not recognize our marriage.
Yeah.
So when it came to file taxes, we
Mhm.
had to file taxes as single people in North Carolina, but the federal taxes, we had to file them as married
Mhm.
couple.
Yeah.
And our tax person told us that basically that was illegal because the law forces you to file both taxes in the same way. But there was no way for us to do it legally anyway. And so
Mhm.
our tax person would say, this this alone is probably
Yeah.
gonna make marriage equality a thing across the land because it's too.
Mhm.
And a couple of years later, it happened, right? Because it was federal law, all of these like local state laws were struck down, and yeah, we have marriage equality across the land.
Mhm.
But at that point, already I had a permanent residency. I became a citizen a couple of years back.
Yeah.
Um, just because living here was one thing, but just seeing the state of politics is just I
Mhm.
couldn't just sit there and not do anything. Right? So it's like
Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah.
to vote, I wanted my voice heard. I'm living here, I'm not going anywhere.
Mhm.
So um, yeah, I had to become a citizen. My husband helped me a lot. It wasn't really hard, but it's a long process. Uh, you had to study for the test, citizenship test that I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I knew more about the states than a lot of people that were born here. But anyway, that's
Mhm.
beside the point.
Mhm.
Uh, it was a long process. I finally did it. I can't remember the year. It was before. I think it was before COVID. I don't even remember, to be honest with you. Maybe it was during COVID. And yeah, became a citizen. Uh, I was able to vote in some local elections. I think the first presidential election that I voted was last year's.
Mhm.
It was to say my candidate didn't win, but yeah, that's where we are now. Uh,
Mhm.
Happily out, proud, married, gay man.
Yeah. Isn't it incredible when you look back on the journey you've been on, especially, when it comes to finding ourselves and comfortability with coming out? Because I think a lot of us can relate to, you first meet someone and it's like, well, maybe I'll wait till we're more serious. And then you get more serious and it's like, well, maybe I'll wait until it's official. And then it's like
Right.
you keep on making, the goalpost keeps moving and it's very confronting the thought of having that conversation sometimes. And so a lot of us, I think, are in that position where years and years go by to just have that one conversation that we come up with these hypotheses of how it's going to go. And then when it's suddenly met with like so much understanding and it's either a parent or sister or someone is like, well, you could have told me,
I know, and
especially,
it's like, um,
imagine with your sister, it was like, she probably thought, well, you could have told me years ago, we could have had this moment to share together. But it's very confronting sometimes, isn't it? When you've built up that sort of fear almost around having that conversation to finally have it. But it goes from seeming like something like, oh, maybe, I'll do this at some point soon to when the goalpost has moved a bit, it's becomes the most nerve-wracking thing. And so it's almost like when they take it well, you're not expecting it, and it's very disarming in a way because it's like
it
you
is
expect it to be the
like a
huge
big deal,
thing.
a big moment. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. But definitely, I mean, I consider myself lucky, right? Because I know not everybody has the same experience, right? Like, there's a lot of I've met a lot of people that yeah, they get rejected by the families, that they move away or they get kicked out of the house. So, but definitely, I always say that coming out is a very uh, integral part of the gay experience or the queer or LGBTQ experience because straight people doesn't have to do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that's very intrinsic to who we are. And I look forward to the day that it's not, that it's like we don't really have to go through this, but right now, it is part of our experiences. But it is different for everybody, and everybody
Yeah.
has to do it on their own terms and kind of like understanding. So it's like a lot of people say, everybody should come out, and I think everybody should try to come out and
Mm.
try to live their authentic selves. But I don't think. I mean, I think every person, individual person, knows what's best for themselves, right? So you
Yeah.
can't really do like say flat out. And the other thing about coming out, right, is that a lot of people don't understand that you don't come out once. It's like it's not
Yeah.
like
So
it's like,
true.
hey, I'm gay, and now the whole world knows, right? It's like you
Yeah.
always have to find out. You always have to come out. Like every time you meet a new person, you have to do the mental math. It's like, do I say this is my husband or do I say this is, Ed, and leave it
Yeah.
at that? We moved to this very conservative neighborhood,
Yeah.
and I mean, we kind of knew that this was going to be a conservative area, but we couldn't really find another place to live. And yeah, we moved here, and it's been a little tricky. Like, to how do we navigate this? I mean, we're two guys living in a house. I mean, I'm sure people do the math and figure it out. But yeah, I remember a politician came to because it was election time, came to our door, and I remember not knowing if I should. Oh no, I remember just flat out saying to her because I don't know what her politics were, and she was talking
Yeah.
about jobs and all kinds of things, and I was like, well, I gotta ask my husband, or I gotta discuss it with my husband, and she was like, her face lit up, and she was like,
Mm.
well, let me tell you, I'm your candidate. I remember she showed me her T-shirt, and she had like a equality T-shirt thing. So like, I
Yeah.
believe in equality, and I was like, okay, you got my
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah.
You are the right person. But anyway, what I was trying to say is that yes, you have to like kind of figure out and adjust your language every time. So you're always coming out to people, and
Yeah. So
it it,
true.
it can be exhausting.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's something that is again part of our experience of who we are.
Yeah, because it's so true when it comes to situations, we're always going to be, sizing up the people that are coming in and out of our lives and how to navigate it. It's
How
like,
it works. Yeah,
it's like coming out is a never-ending process. So it's always the biggest relief when you come out at first to like friends and family, but then you realize it just continues on. But it's great when you've got a partner, someone that you can really confide in that can relate to those moments too. And when in the same neighborhood and you've got someone to go through all these things together with, it helps it to be a lot less isolating. Because I know for a lot of people, it's can be a drainer on mental health, sometimes when
it
you're
really
going
is.
into new situations, work environments, whatever it is, a new town, a new city, and it's like you've got to start that process all over again. So I think it's so important to have, that support figure to be able to lean on in those times.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's yeah, it's a never-ending situation. But that's where I mean, I keep telling my husband, which again, because it's a conservative neighborhood with them, we haven't really done it, but I keep telling him we should just put a gay flag on our door, and I was like, then
Yeah.
everybody will know, and then it wouldn't be an issue. But he's a little hesitant because uh, before he met me, he had another partner, and they had a gay flag in their house. Their house got vandalized. Like they
Yeah.
were a bag and things in their garage door, and it wasn't a very nice experience. Um,
Yeah.
so he's a little traumatized, but I understand that. So he's a little more reserved person.
Yeah,
Um,
for
but
sure.
yeah, it's true. It's true. Like the other thing I always remember is um it's just people assuming things. It's like at work, right? People would ask, so, how's your wife? And I'm like, at the beginning, sometimes I wouldn't correct them. Like, it depends on the person. You have
Yeah.
to, again, doing the mental math, right? It's like, is it worth my time
Yeah, for sure.
correcting this person? Uh, there are days where I feel like, you know, I'm an out proud gay man, so of course I should correct everybody. But other times it's like I don't have the energy to go into
Yeah.
it. So, you say something vague like fine, and then you just move on, and you just
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to get into it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
so true.
Part
Yeah.
of life. Part of again the queer experience, I think.
Yeah, it's like you're never going to win them all. And it's like it would be exhausting to try with
Absolutely.
every person anyway. So it's like you've just got to, live your authentic life. And who is not meant to be a part of it, it's like, oh, well, stay to the side and you don't let them affect you too much. But I do think it's always inspiring to hear these romance stories, and hear about happy marriages. And I bet for you, you always will remember like those key moments, like the day you started speaking and sort of the innocence. And probably the first time you met, I imagine, was a big moment because it's always very nerve-wracking when you go on a date or to meet someone for the first time anyway, that you've been talking for a while to. And it's like when
That's
you have that first meeting and it's long distance, I imagine there's like a lot of pressure on it at the same time.
that's a very new thing. Also, yes, you're absolutely right. I completely forgot about that. My husband always remember this. Yeah, it was the first time we met. Like we actually physically met in the same space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Chile. In Chile, when you meet a friend, you shake their hands. That's
Yeah.
normal. That's how you greet people in Chile. So I remember I went to shake his hand, and he went for the hug. So
Yeah.
it was kind of like awkward, right? But I do remember like you know getting that hug at the airport, you know,
Yeah.
feeling him for the first time. I was like, yeah, this is it. This is it, right? It's like it
Yeah.
was like electric and it was beautiful. Oh, now I want to go and give him a hug. It's just yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah, it's always incredible, I think, to hear about people's journeys and the way life like takes you. And I imagine as well, like when you look back, like on your memories together, like those moments, like just being accepted as a couple, like when you say, "Oh, I wonder, have you seen us with like the professor and stuff?" It's like, those moments when we're not used to, because even after we find a partner, sometimes it's a bit of anxiety, isn't there, about being seen in the street with someone. And even though it should be something that comes naturally, it takes a while to get comfortable with it. So when someone sort of disarms it by it just suddenly seeming very easygoing and normal to them, and they just bring it up in conversation, it's very freeing to have that experience with
Oh,
people as well.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's true what you say. At least here in the States, I don't know how the situation is in other parts of the world, but at least where I live, we still you can't really like pull hands while you're walking on the street or anything like
Yeah.
that. So like we walk side by side, but it's like very a very masculine walk, right? So it's like it's still there's always the questions like how people are gonna react if we suddenly fail. But sometimes, like a couple of weeks ago, we were in Portland, Maine, which is a larger city, and yeah, we saw several couples, lesbians and gays, holding hands, and we were like, yeah, I guess there were younger couples, but yeah, I feel like there's a lot of progress. Uh,
Yeah.
but again, my husband and I would be, I guess, I don't know what the word is, perhaps traumatized. So we still feel like
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
we hold hands on the street, we're like, sweating. It was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
We're gonna probably nobody cares, but still, it's like, it's too much. Uh, we get too nervous to really enjoy it, I guess. So yeah, don't do it. Then when we're like, I remember going on the beach with him. That's a different thing because like if there's somebody around, you can just hold hands and walk on the beach. So that was gonna be nice. We haven't done it in a long time, but yes, they're more romantic too, sure.
Yeah, because some people as well, like, they're more into that PDA as well, aren't they? Like I've always been someone that it makes me sort of flinch and jump. I think for a lot of us, when it's something, especially when you've sort of grown up, like hiding different aspects of yourself, or you grow up in, a small town or somewhere where you don't see those queer couples at all. It's even when you move somewhere where it's a lot more comfortable. Like I remember when I moved to Madrid and my mom and sister came to visit and I was dating someone at the time and he kept trying to hold my hand and I kept flinching like because I was so not used to it and I was like, oh what? like it's silly to think it now, but I'm like, what are people going to think? And like, what's my mom going to think? And it's like all these preconceived notions that I always say, like, part of adult life as well, especially after you come out, it's sort of, it's almost like layers of an onion. And it's like we build these layers up for, protection a lot of the time. And so peeling back those layers is very confronting. And it's like, we want to be able to give our all to everyone, but it's difficult sometimes, when you build up like
Yes.
a fear almost around whether it's PDA or whatever it is, when it doesn't come naturally to you, sometimes it takes a while. And we're always going to be, unfortunately, in those situations where travel somewhere different or move to a different place, different state, town, and have to judge the situation again. Like, is it, safe to walk in this bar or whatever it is? And it's unfortunately it's a part of life, but it's
It,
something
it
that we will always have to do, sort of monitor those situations.
it really is. It seems unfair, but it's true. I mean, there's not really much we can do about it in our lives, I guess. But I like I said, like we said earlier, I have seen a lot of progress. We're not all there yet. But again, going back to like Love Simon or Heartstopper, right? I
Yeah,
remember watching those shows and thinking, if that was me when I was in high school, I would have
yeah,
been killed probably. It's like how do these kids do it?
yeah,
So yeah, like you said, this layers that we build of the onion that we build around us for protection, everything, they become part of who we are too. And they're part of
yeah.
our
So
identity.
true.
So, getting rid of them is hard. It's like it's changing who you are. And yeah, but perhaps it's healthy, but I understand why it would be difficult for sure.
Yeah, but I do think though having that partner, someone that can relate to all the experiences that you're going through and have someone to confide in about all the emotions is so important. And it must be
I
such
am
a joy having that marriage and that union
I
together.
am
Look,
I
look
am
at
so
who we did
grateful.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm so grateful that I have that. I yeah, I remember yeah, I told you we got married here in Maine. With his family were here. Some of my friends from Chile came.
yeah,
My family from Chile couldn't come. It was too expensive to bring them all. I just couldn't do it. But this was years ago. We celebrated like our 20th anniversary recently, so it was like 12 years ago.
yeah,
So this was way before COVID. So what I'm trying to say is that there weren't like these video conferencing apps weren't that great back in the day, but we
yeah,
still
yeah,
something like that. My sister invited everybody to her apartment, and she put our wedding like in a big screen, and everybody was like,
yeah.
drinking and watching our wedding. It was really nice.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so they participated in this. Even my grandmother, who
Mhm.
I don't know was in her 80s or something.
Yeah.
She didn't really know very much what was going on, but she still knew that
Mm.
you know I forgot she was used a funny word. She wouldn't say boyfriend or friend, but yeah, I mean she knew the whole deal, even though I don't think she fully understood
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it meant. But yeah, she was cool with it. Um, so
yeah,
yeah, basically I was the only one that was afraid for her.
yeah. I do think there are those people though, and sometimes it's from other generations that you never have like the specific conversation with, but it's like
Right.
they know, and it's like we both know, but I know in their way that they're showing up for me so that they accept me, and it's like sometimes we don't have to have, that conversation,
The
especially
talk.
when it's someone from a different generation. It's similar like with my grandma, she's like nearly 87 now, and it's like we've never had the conversation. I know my mom has with her, but I've never spoken about it. But I know in her way, like she completely accepts me as I am, but we'll probably never have the talk. I mean, I can't imagine doing that, especially
Yeah.
with her, like how I'd even bring it up because I already know she knows. And it's
Right.
nice when you have those people, isn't it, that you don't have to have the conversation with because it gets exhausted sometimes
It really
constantly
does.
having the
It does.
conversation.
Um, and again, that's it's true, and I feel like that's why representation is so important. And also, yeah, not to plug my business, but a lot of part of of this whole thing is that, wearing a t-shirt that
Mm.
expresses your identity makes
Yeah.
things a lot easier, right? So
Yeah, for sure.
you see the eyes of recognition, right? So it's like people frown at you, and then you know that that person is not really safe to talk to, and then other people they smile, or they give you the wink, or they give you a compliment, and you understand that they understand, what your identity is, and
Yeah.
it does make the job a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's just not t-shirts, right? I guess that's how you express your identity. Is really, I feel like younger people are really good at it. I've seen, uh, yeah, people that are able to express their identity via their hair,
Yeah.
their makeup, or whatever it is that they're wearing. It's just, there's something that you say, oh, I know that this person is safe, right? Or I know that I I
Yeah.
I can really relate to this person just because of the way they're presenting themselves.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and I guess on the other end, it's also true. Like sometimes you see these people that you know that you should not really get be near them because they won't like you. I don't know. At least here in the States, especially where I
Yeah.
live, there's
Yeah,
a lot of people
definitely.
that you know that they're probably not going to accept you right away. So you might maybe not deal with them so closely. Sure.
Yeah, definitely. And how has it been the experience for you being able to start your own business and to have Hunky Tops? And I always think it's fantastic, to hear from people in the queer community that have managed, to launch their own business. And I imagine when you look back at those moments in your childhood and you think, it's funny, isn't it, how we were saying earlier, those key moments, they shape us into interests and things that we pursue in the present sometimes.
It definitely is. I never really thought about it until we were talking about it earlier today. But it is true. It is funny how those yeah, if, in a way, it feels like it was always meant to be, or that I was, this maybe is why it's a little easier for me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, we when we moved from North Carolina to Maine, um, a big reason we decided to move. So I have a 9 to 5. My main job it was in North Carolina, is in North Carolina, and but North Carolina is a very conservative state, and you know, I don't know how familiar you are with American politics, but they just had um, reverted Roe v. Wade. So basically, they reverted reproductive rights for women.
Yeah.
And it was a very clear indication for us that the next thing that could go was marriage equality or
Yeah.
any kind of like LGBTQ federal protection. And the state of North Carolina being as conservative as it is, it didn't feel like a good place for us to be living in
Yeah.
case that some of those rights were taken away from us. So
Mhm.
we decided to move to Maine because Maine was a little more liberal state. They had marriage equality way before other
Yeah.
states. Um, there's yeah, there's a lot of more like liberal
Mm.
laws here in the state. Also, I mean, it's not the only state that's liberal, but the other plus for Maine is that my husband's family live here.
Yeah.
So we moved here to be closer to family and to be in a more liberal area. However, how's the prices of real estate were
Mm.
really high, and we couldn't find anything that we could afford. So we ended up living
Yeah.
here in the middle of nowhere, which is very conservative. So like the state of Maine is very liberal, but it has like a very conservative area. That's where we
Yeah.
live. Conservative. So it's a little bit of a shame. Um, but anyway, so when we moved to Maine, again, it was kind of like a new opportunity to like be like reinvent yourself, and it's
Yeah.
like again, we're moving from some place that is a little more oppressive to some place that feels more liberal to us. So I wanted to, oh, because I was gonna start walking to work. I was renting an office space to do like my remote job. So I
Yeah.
had to work from where we're staying to that place every day. So I wanted to like show my identity to the world. It's like I'm here, I'm
Yeah.
queer, and I want to show it. Mostly because when you walk downtown Portland, there's a lot of like gay flags, and all the businesses, have like stickers, and they're
Yeah. Yeah.
very friendly and all of that. So it feels very welcoming. So I was like, I want to tell the world who I am,
Yeah.
and started looking for t-shirts online and things to wear. And I felt like there were like two ends to this thing. They were like all rainbow, all like very, I don't know, colorful and very just very gay.
Mm.
Or on the other spectrum, they were very like naughty, kind of like, too
Yeah.
kinky, like to be seen in public, like to to work. Like couldn't wear those t-shirts to like a Zoom meeting or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to like find something in the middle, and
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything. So that's when I said, why don't I just make my own t-shirts? And I started
Mm.
looking into it, and yeah, I found out it wasn't really all that hard. I had some ideas, so I started putting them together and decided just to make a shop and start selling them.
Mm.
Uh, and of course, I'm not the first one, and I guess that was part of the realization is that I've been running this. This was like over a year ago. I guess next year will be 2 years in
Yeah.
March. Um, during this time, I've met a lot of other people that are doing the same thing, in the apparel industry, but also in other kind of industries. There's a lot of queer people that are trying to make it in the business world as small
Yeah.
business owners. And that's why I appreciate, the work that you do, or the work that Joe does, Joe
Mm.
Federico, they're
Yeah.
just trying to put queer businesses out there, especially, because Pride comes and people go to the big box stores and buy their Pride t-shirts, and like, why buy from them when you could just be supporting someone in your
Yeah.
own
So
community,
true.
right?
Yeah.
So I always, yeah. So I'm trying to do the same. I'm trying to support other small businesses, queer-owned
Yeah.
businesses, even for my own. Instead of like hiring agents, like marketing agencies for my
Mm.
job, I try to like talk with like LGBTQ marketers,
Yeah.
or LGBTQ owned agencies. So, it is a little, it's hard. It's just to find the right people, but it feels good to just, if you're
Yeah.
going to spend the money, um, don't spend it on, I was doing this, I was running Facebook ads, I was very successful,
Mm.
but my ad account was hacked. It was really terrifying. There was a moment where a lot of money was taken out of my account. I was very scared. And during that time, is also when I decided to like stop paying these big corporations for
Yeah.
things and just try to keep it in the family. And like I said, it's not easy, but it's way more rewarding to
Yeah. For
just be
sure.
talking to people that own small businesses that are trying to make it. Not all of them do. Some of them stick around for a year or two and then they close up. But even if it's for a year or two, just help them out.
Yeah. Yeah.
By buying their products, or simply by sharing their stuff on social media, just being there and being supportive. Simple as leaving a comment, like a positive comment on their stuff,
Yeah.
helps the algorithms, and it also gives them a little ego boost. So yeah, it's hard, but it's good work, is rewarding, and I love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and my own shop is doing well. Like I said, I stopped running ads, so my sales went down a lot, but the few sales that I have now feel a lot more, uh, I don't know, more personal, I guess. It's the certain
Yeah.
thing. Like, you start talking with your clients. It's more like a one-on-one thing, and yeah, it feels great. I love hearing from them. They send me pictures, they send me messages. Hey, I wore your T-shirt to the gym, or I wear it to
Yeah.
this party, and people
Oh, that's awesome.
and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it makes me feel great. I mean, that's the reason why I started the whole thing, and yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's always fantastic, isn't it, when you get that feedback and people, send messages and you see them like in a t-shirt, sending a picture. It's got to be like super rewarding because, when you're able to really connect with that community and it feels like, also they're not just buying a product, but they're really, connecting with you personally. It's really one of the most validating things and it makes it all worthwhile because it can be tough, when you start a business at first. But I always say the hardest part is just doing it. But when you've got an idea and a passion, you've just got to go for it. And it's so incredible, I think, how the community we find each other in sometimes the most
It's
random ways and we find
it's
that
all about the
connectivity.
connection. yeah, it's all about those connections. And yeah, I establishing connections, my customer establish connections with me, but also with each other, which I always find amazing. Like sometimes, I'm not long ago I got a message from a customer that met another one of my customers at a party, right? Like they were both
Yeah.
wearing Hunky Tops and they, recognize each other, and they was like,
Oh, awesome.
it was like,
Yeah.
this is great. This is exactly, and they were like from different states, but one of them was visiting and they went to a
Yeah.
party. Yeah, it was great. So yeah, I love it. It's fantastic. And this is also part of what I do. Part of my own story had to do with being on an online spaces and trying
Mhm.
to find safe online spaces. And I've always that's part of what I want Hunky Tops to be also is like a community of people that they feel safe and they're proud of who they are and proud
Yeah.
to share it to the world. Um, so yeah, that's still a work in progress, but we're getting there. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, right. I think, having the power of community is so important to all of us. And I think it's such an incredible story that you've been on, to where you are at present. I imagine, when you look back at all your different chapters up until this point, you've got to, have a proud moment now, being able to live your life at its most authentic and have that business out there in the world and all the people that you can now reach because of it. I think it's got to be a very powerful moment for you personally.
I haven't really stopped to think about it, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's crazy. It's a little bit yeah, it's humbling, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
To think that yeah, as a little kid from Chile all the way to an old dude that's selling t-shirts online, it's been quite a journey, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to see where it takes me.
Yeah, we're excited as well to follow your chapters as well and see what 2025 brings. And so for everyone that's tuned in, where can they contact you? Also, your website, what's the best place to reach out?
Absolutely. So hunkytops.com, that's the shop. And if you scroll all the way down, there's links to my social media. Sadly, Hunky Tops was not available on Instagram. So I guess that's the one where I'm more active on social media. So
Yeah,
on Instagram, I'm Hunky Tops Apparel.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, people can DM me there. We can chat. I respond to all the DMs myself. This is
yeah,
also another thing
awesome.
that I take pride of is a lot of work, but I try to respond to all the emails and all the messages that I get myself. I'm not really super active on Facebook, but we also have a Facebook page, which I believe is Hunky Tops, and TikTok. Again, if you go to my website, hunkytops.com, all the way on the
Yeah.
bottom, find all the links to all the social media places. And my email if you want to write. Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been fantastic to hear your story and have you on the podcast.
Connor, thank you so much for the opportunity. I had a blast. It was great.
Yeah, thanks so much. And to everyone that's tuned in for this week's episode, thank you so much. And we'll be back next week with another Queerness Diary. So thank you so much.